What's up guys, KPlaysHere. Pop quiz, what are the first 3 things that come to mind when you think about hunting horn? I'd be willing to bet that for most of you, song playing is always going to be on that list, if not number 1. Songs, both the buffing effects and the special recital attacks you use to play them, are what makes hunting horn a truly unique choice compared to other weapons. You can change your horn from an instrument of pain to just an instrument, playing out a wide selection of helpful tunes that range from free resistance skills to stat increases. The way hunting horn has gone about using its special gimmick has evolved quite a bit over the years, and everyone has their own thoughts about which way is peak hunting horn. I definitely have my own preferences for a few, but if you ask me, all the best features are kinda split up across multiple versions. Can we get them all into one dream version? Well, let's see. When most people refer to old school hunting horn, they're usually talking about world or maybe 4th gen, 3rd gen maximum. The true old school version from 2nd gen though never really comes up in conversation. But honestly, it's kinda for the best that we remember it but never revisit it, because that was a pretty rough first draft. The OG song style had some pretty major flaws that would have held hunting horn back as monsters, other weapons, and the general gameplay of the series got faster paced. Since you build notes during the recital mode itself, you get this weird separation between song playing and combat. Regular attacks ended up not having much to do with your main gimmick, and you spend a bit too much time shuffling around while you put together notes for buffs. This didn't really force you to play songs away from the fight, but it did make using recital mode offensively a bit risky and impractical. Frontier did try to build up on this style by adding things like an encore stomp for maxing out your buffs faster, a monster weakening debuff that you could charge as you attacked, and a special note that allowed you to change your song list in the middle of the hunt. But unfortunately, even with those things, the base mechanics would have held us back in the long run. It isn't all negative though. When things were revised from 3rd gen onwards, there were 2 key things that were actually missed from 2nd gen. First, hunting horn lost the ability to slowly move around during recital mode. It seems relatively minor, but going from this to being totally rooted in place like you were in 3rd and 4th gen definitely makes for a difference in commitment. Once you hit that right trigger, you were seeing that song through to the end, whether that end was you activating the song and rolling away, or getting trampled because you chose your opening poorly. Second, there was the ability to overlap your notes. The 2nd gen recital mode played a continuous string of notes, so the last notes of one song could become the first ones of the next. This wasn't possible in 3rd and 4th gen. Once a song was recognized on your staff, that's the song your recital will play. Since notes were tied to attacking from 3rd gen onwards, you had the chance to unintentionally erase a song if you attacked too much before playing it, or mess up the note combo you had in mind by attacking in the wrong order. Now, does this mean I missed the 2nd gen mechanics? Well, not quite. Having to build notes with what was essentially a mid-combat minigame mode that wasn't connected to the rest of the moveset at all could make the gameplay feel somewhat disjointed. The 3rd gen shift to stocking notes with attacks and playing songs with recitals did a great job of unifying both halves of hunting horn's gameplay loop. The order of your normal attacks had to have more thought behind them because they decided the order of your notes. So if you spam moves at random or only use the high DPS combos like other weapons, well then no songs for you. Nothing else in the game really has this freestyle, planning out things move by move in a specific order feel, which gives hunting horn a unique playstyle. And if we're being honest with ourselves here, it also gives us hunting horn players a nice little ego boosting big brain feeling as a side bonus. That said, even the newer recital mode isn't exactly perfect. With self-improvement active, hunting horn has one of the fastest movement speeds in the game, which is what makes it a bit odd that recital mode takes that away from you. It'd be nice to see a game where you didn't have to give up your high mobility in order to play songs, and fortunately, Monster Hunter Online showed us exactly what that looked like in action. It's a shame that there's not much in the way of videos or info about it to be found, and that there's currently no way to play it after the server shut down, because it looks pretty darn fun. See, the majority of the weapon in that game was more or less the same as it was in any other existing version at the time, aside from one simple yet groundbreaking change. During recitals, you can just get up and walk around like normal. No mandatory hunting horn shuffle to be found. As a former marching band kid, I can say that playing music while moving around is definitely 100% possible. And while I don't have the experience with the whole while also fighting giant dragons part, I'd guess that you want to be as light on your feet as possible then too. On top of that free movement, you also have the option to use a mid-recital flourish after or instead of an encore that lets you queue up another song. That chain of back-to-back recitals could hypothetically just keep on going forever, making for one of the smoothest recital modes we've ever seen. The one catch I could see being an issue for players more used to the main series hunting horn is the change to note combos. Instead of having your song selection determined by specific note colors, each horn could potentially have any 4 to 5 songs. That seems great for variety at first, until you also add in the fact that they also use the same 4 to 5 note combos across the board instead of having different ones for every song and song list. In other words, when it came to switching up your horns, you had a wide selection of buffing options, but you'd be pressing the same buttons in the same order no matter what you choose. Personally, at the very least I'd still call this improvement over Rise's almost non-existent note mechanics and small 3-buff song lists. Even with 2 different modes to choose from, it's still much simpler than Online's hunting horn, or any other games for that matter. Echo mode only required a single note to cue a song, and performance mode tosses recitals altogether in favor of automatic songs after matching 2 notes of the same color. That's nearly nothing. As much as I love being able to rapid fire out songs with the most recent redesign, All 9 is probably the simplest you could go with, still keeping the essence of song mechanics intact. On the complete opposite end of the spectrum, World and Iceborne Hunting Horn are by far the most technically complex versions we've ever seen. The slow repositioning, shuffle, and overlapping notes between songs from 2nd gen were returned and repurposed to help with a new focus on recitals as your go-to offensive. In Generations, we could use double notes to replay the last song's effects as long as we landed every hit while stringing together notes of the current one, which obviously pushed you to be more aggressive for the sake of efficiency. In World, this was replaced with a song queue, which allowed you to store the last 3 songs you input notes for instead of just losing them entirely as you kept attacking. This mechanic had a lot more of a freestyle, do-you kind of feel to it, because you could utilize those stored songs for multiple different purposes. Playing multiple songs at once, saving the bus for later, storing notes specifically to use as ammunition for recital attacking, you name it. The technical depth of this weapon increased a lot with this addition, and it did so again with the echo notes throwing another 2 songs onto every list. And then, well, that all just kind of blew away in the wind with Rise. Despite that though, if you set the admittedly lacking song mechanics aside, Rise did show us for a second time how nice Hunting Horn without the shuffle was. We really could go around in circles endlessly on which Hunting Horn does what the best, and that's because its gimmick is made up of several different aspects. No combos and how you string them together, the relative speed and aggression of your recital attacks, song variety, little techniques here and there for managing your buffs, so on and so on. When it comes to building a perfect recital mode and song mechanic, we're going to need it to accomplish a few things. It has to feel like it takes some deliberate thoughts and actions to it, but not so much focus that it takes you out of the fight every time you engage in the mechanics. Ideally, that means that recitals would end up being one of the biggest damage tools rather than just a buff activation button, and for that we could probably use a few tweaks to add some power to your chords. The normal moveset can't be forgotten either though, because again, if you're not stocking notes, you're not going to be playing any songs. With that said though, let's get into what I do. First things first, World Song Queue, easily one of the best things Capcom ever did for the weapon, so it stays. The Hunting Horn Shuffle though, yeah, that's gotta go. It's quirky, it's iconic and nostalgic, but when it comes to actual functionality, it doesn't really serve any purpose besides making recitals a longer break in the action when they should really be the action. Originally, I considered replacing the shuffle with the recital run from online, but ultimately I settled on the GU Valor style and Rise redesign approach of just making songs activate immediately after recital attacks. In both games, the transitions between regular and recital attacks was much snappier, and since we've already seen 2 official titles make this change, I see no reason why it can't just be the norm moving forward. The running recital would also be great, but it could also have the slight possibility of blurring the lines between Hammer and Hunting Horn with how much it resembles the charging stance. What I do want to borrow from that game though is the way you could string together notes between recitals to keep the chain going. The fancy 2 to 4 hit flourish that replaces normal attacking isn't really necessary for that. If you could just combo into regular attacks from recitals instead of always needing to roll cancel first, you could effectively accomplish the same thing. Expanding your options after a recital to include more than just the encore would fit Hunting Horn's freestyle attacking nature well. In fact, and I think this might be a bit of a hot take, I don't really even think we need encores anymore. If you think about it, Song Bus having multiple tiers has always been a bit redundant. There's rarely if ever a time you wouldn't want the full effect active for any given song, so they're really just an extra micromanagement step. The only exception that comes to mind at the moment is intentionally avoiding encoring health boosts so the timer wears off faster and you can use it as an emergency heal. Other than that, can you really think of any more reasons for them to be in? If not, there really isn't that much to lose by shelving them along with the shuffle now, is there? Rise did it, and while there was a lot of complaints there about that song system, I feel like taking just this and the fast recitals while also having everything else reset back to the old mechanics would alleviate a lot of the concerns. Landing a full recital and encore combo was one of Hunting Horn's biggest dopamine rush, max style points moments though, so we're not going to get rid of those entirely. After all, who says that encoring needs to be a feature for you to be able to get that payoff? With the song queue, you have up to 3 songs ready to play at any given time right there, so why not have that be your musical combo instead? If you have each recital after the first use a stronger and more aggressive attack, that'd give you the exact same feel as an old recital encore combo. You can even use the same animations, and with the full queue you even get to throw in an initial finisher. And of course you'd also be getting out 2 to 3 times the songs with each recital combo without having to sit in the shuffle for 2 to 3 times as long like in World. Same end result, but reach more actively and aggressively. As a side effect, this could add another layer to weapon choices and gameplay decisions too, since your efficiency with stocking notes would directly control how much you could use these combos. We're not stopping there though. No, we have a huge injustice to set right, because you see, Hunting Horn kinda got skipped over when Capcom was handing out counters left and right in the last game. Bow got Dodge Bolt, Hammer got Water Strike, Dual Blades got Shrouded Vault. Don't think we didn't notice not getting one just because we make up like 3% of the player base on a good day. What makes it worse is that the real-life musical term counter melody is literally sitting right there, tragically unused for how easy of a pun it'd be. If Longsword could have no shield but get a different counter added to it every single game over the last couple years, Hunting Horn could get at least one, right? A Hunting Horn counter would be pretty easy to implement too. Thematically, we wouldn't really be blocking with it, but we could dance out of the way of attacks while we play our songs. Generations Ultimate and Rise both shared a breakdancing dodge recital for that exact purpose, and there are a few recital mode moves that could be used to swing yourself out of danger. We can take things further than an attack with iframes and a few situational repositioning moves to make a proper counter mechanic. As long as you have at least one song stored in your queue, you can hit right trigger plus X to try for a counter melody using the breakdance or a quick slide to the left or right. Successful timing would reward you with a heavier follow-up attack that builds up a significant amount of the echo meter I mentioned in the last part of the series, and then lead into your new recital combo. All recital attacks would do this of course, but since you'd be using the meter for a lot of various offensive sound abilities, landing counters during your recital chain would be key for keeping this resource topped off. All of this would come together pretty well to encourage Hunting Horn's core gameplay loop. Stringing together notes and getting out recitals consistently would be rewarded with slick dodges and higher damage output, and you'd naturally be managing your buffs as a direct result of your offensive play. No more normal mode and recital mode being split apart, or moments where you're just hanging out passively jamming while you make songs. Everything you do will all flow together to create a single stylish and aggressive performance, and for the most part, it's accomplished without oversimplifying things like in Rise or Online. With this though, we're almost through my Wilds wishlist for Hunting Horn. It's been fun trying to build this thing up from scratch exactly the way I'd like to see it in the future. Next we'll have to get into what I want to hear. The general feel of the weapon definitely is important, but without the actual buffs themselves, we wouldn't really be playing Hunting Horn now, would we? Revising things in the song system has almost been more of a project than revising the moveset, honestly. You'll see what I mean in the next part, where we'll be putting together our new hypothetical song selection for our new hypothetical moveset. Until then though, this has been another KPlays, and I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day.